Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Identity Project. Today, I have a very special guest, somebody that I got introduced to a long time ago. God, it's probably been, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even more when I first got into CrossFit. But somebody that's always been an inspiration to me from afar. He may or may not know that, but no other than what's going on, Spencer Nix. How are you, buddy?
What a treat to be here. Thank you for having me, Justin. This is a pleasure to have a virtual conversation with you.
Yes. Gotta love this technology these days. But dude, keeping it true to the podcast, man, I think you have quite the story, even though you're super humble and you don't talk about it much. But I'd love to dive back into the story of how Spencer Nix became and how the community of CFDC has gotten built into what it is today, my friend.
Well, there's a lot of stories there, but specifically how the gym got started.
Well, let's start with you first. So let's take you back. First off, how old are you now?
I'm 75.
70.
I'm 36. 36 years young.
And were you born out here in Texas,
Still,
or
skin's pretty tight. What's that?
I said, were you born out here in Texas, or where are you from?
I'm originally from Terrell, Texas. If you're not from Dallas, I can just say I'm from Dallas. But if you're from here, I have to actually, specify that I'm from 40 miles east of Dallas in a small town. You ever been to Terrell?
Maybe possibly for like football or baseball or powerlifting or something, maybe once or twice. But yeah, I know where it's at.
Small town. I think the population hasn't changed since I lived there as a kid. Home of Jamie Foxx. My dad's a dentist there. Small town environment, kind of a rural country area. If you haven't been there, for all the listeners here from Portugal, you got to describe, the terrain. But yeah, grew up in Tyrrell. Was not a great athlete growing up. Not great. Was pretty good at music, pretty good at theater, pretty good at academics. Not a great athlete. I played some sports. I did, powerlifting, which is the funniest thing on earth to think back because they put you in the suits, right? It's like you're, prepubescent and, I was like my height, I'm, like not quite 6'2". So in high school, I was really tall, but if I'm 220 now, I was like, 160, but in those, squat suits and like the bench shirts and all the gear that they let you do. But I mean, it was like just change plates on the bar, to do for the powerlifting. But, anyways, I did tennis, I did soccer, I did some sports, but was really, by my own estimation, like insecure about that. Would not, if high school is kind of the cliques and the different groups, would not have been in the like athletes group. I was not categorized as that. Had some family that was in the Navy. And so I thought that would be like my trajectory. Again, like I wasn't terrible at academics. And so I applied to the Naval Academy. That's where I really wanted to go. Even got a congressional appointment, which is kind of the hard like box to check off. If you know, like the service academies and stuff like that. But I didn't pass the physical. I failed because I had adolescent asthma and like never ran growing up. And so, there were, I think it's multifaceted and it was a little more complex than that. But in my mind, as like a 17-year-old, I was like, I can't go here because I'm not in good enough shape. Long story short, I decided to go to A&M because outside of the service academies, like that has a really great reputation as like an ROTC program. And so I applied, got into there. I joined the Corps Cadets at A&M, if you're familiar with that. But again, it's like same song, second verse. I was immediately put in like a remedial PT group. So for physical training. So, every morning in the Corps, you get up, you go run, you run as like a unit, like you would see, in boot camp or in the military. And I just couldn't keep up. Like I would just get left. And so I was put in this remedial group, and it was just humiliating, man. I mean, it was so demoralizing because, like I'd gotten a little, I guess more developed, so I wasn't, 160 pounds, but still you would look at me and you'd be like, well, this guy should be fine. He should be able to run fine. I was in this group with basically a lot of guys that were overweight and aesthetically out of shape. And so there's a series of events that I think for me were very powerful, where I don't know your background extensively, Justin, but my assumption is that a lot of people that get into fitness, a lot of people that get into athletics as a vocation, as a profession, it's and maybe this is like not true, right? But I had this impression that it's because they have an abundance of athleticism themselves, and it's like, the good Lord has blessed me with such abundance that I should bestow this upon all the subjects around me. And that wasn't really the case for me. Like, it started with such an insecurity and such a deficit that it got to a point where it's like my whole world couldn't evolve unless I figured this thing out. I think what I did have going for me is that I'm not an idiot. I like to solve problems. And so this became like a really desperate problem to solve for me. First and foremost was like, what could I do just to keep up for like a 20-minute run? And then, what could I do to not just keep up with the 20-minute run with this remedial group? What could I do to keep up with the 20-minute run for these people that I was supposed to be in a group with? And then from there, it kind of launched off into these other offshoots. It's like, man, what does it mean to actually eat healthy? Because for me, asthma, which is inflammation of the bronchial tubes, can be influenced significantly by the type of nutrition that you eat, right? And so I realized that, man, there's some stuff that I'm consuming that's producing this inflammatory response, and it's manifesting itself as asthma. On to like, well, what does it mean to be a good runner? Well, you can't just have like cardiorespiratory endurance. Like, you have to have stamina. Where does stamina come from? Well, that's actually at the muscular level. You need local stamina, and your muscles need to be strong. And so it was like this thing that kind of fascinated me at first, not because I was great at it. And I was like, man, let me analyze how I'm so awesome at this. Like, I suck. I've got to figure this out. And so long story short, like, led me to be really passionate about it. It turned into a hobby. The hobby turned into a vocation, first at the university level. I didn't major in exercise phys, but I was at A&M, they call it like a biomedical science major. And so you could kind of take that and launch into more specific areas. And so I did that in school. And then right out of school, I worked at a place that on paper looks really sexy. It's called Plex, and it trained pro athletes for the NFL Combine. Guys like Julius Pepper, Roger Clemens, like these, at the time, like these professional athletes were all training there. And I got a job there. I just walked in and I was like, hey, I need to work here. And they're like, well, we won't pay anything, but you can come down and hang out with us. And so I did that. They eventually started paying me. That was the first time I got to see like the inner workings of kind of an entrepreneurial endeavor there. And it's not all sunshine. There was some stuff on the back end that like isn't super glamorous that I kind of got, firsthand experience with. But then at the time, and I'll kind of wrap this up and put a bow on it. My brother, who's 5 years younger than me, was in his undergrad at SMU. And fast forward to where I was then, I had gone from this really ugly caterpillar to now this beautiful butterfly that, by my own estimation, I was working with pro athletes. I knew my shit when it came to strength conditioning now. Like, I had been in the trenches. I thought I had really arrived at that point. And Sam, my brother, was like, hey, I have Men's Journal. This is the 50 most popular fitness websites. Have you seen this one called CrossFit? And at first I just kind of brushed it off. I was like, this youngster thinks he can teach me something about strength conditioning. And I looked into workout and I kind of cherry picked it, meaning I picked one that catered to the stuff I like to do. So it was, I don't know if you ever done this one, but it's like weighted pull-ups, strict pull-ups, and then kipping pull-ups. And I was like, it's all right. It's not a bad workout. It's great. It's like a giant set, right? It's like a super set of 3 exercises. I think it's great. Long story short, Sam and I went out to California. I thought that even though I was working there, I would go into medicine, so I had taken the MCAT. I was applying to medical schools. We went out to San Francisco to interview at a medical school, and that's where the original CrossFit gym was, right? And so, he kept kind of inundating me with this information. I was like, yeah. But since we were out there, I was like, hey, why don't we go visit this place? And that changed everything, right? Because I got to see kind of the methodology in place. More importantly, I got to see what that community looks like, which was different than anything I had seen at the university level or in a typical like commercial gym, or even at like this professional sector, which I was just kind of dabbling in at the time. And being out there, I think changed both of our lives because it just seems so cool. You know what I mean? As far as CrossFit went, like at the time, it just seemed so cool. Yeah, there was like good science behind the mixed modality and, the way that they programmed and, the whole package deal. But if I could be honest with you, it just felt like cool to be out there. And so we came back and that changed a lot of things. One, I did a lot more of those workouts. And so I got kind of a testimony of their potency, but also, I learned the Olympic lifts in college and then, the job that I was doing at the time, but I'd never seen them. We take that for granted right now. It's like mixed modality training, but that stuff was cutting edge in 2005. Like that was tip of the spear to do a workout with a light snatch and then pull-ups. Like that was mind-boggling. Nobody had ever done that, right? Now it's like, yeah, who cares? There's a million workouts like that. But that at the time was like this really strong coupling of the community aspect, but then like some thought and maybe more so like some creativity behind the program design. So, man, long story short, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We got to cut it off right after this. But, long story short, like we came back and we just started doing it. This was 2006, I guess. And so it was just a renegade movement. We'd do it in the park. We went to SMU. I changed jobs. I came back to Dallas. I was getting a master's degree in cognitive science. And so Sam and I were kind of like doing this together. We made a garage gym at home in Terrell. We'd bring people out there. In the early days, it was like we just wanted to scuff people up. Like we were gonna get you convinced that this was the way, not by educating you on the science, but just dosing you with probably unhealthy levels of intensity. And so, man, we were a couple of gunslingers, man, just out to prove a point. We had a buddy who was in real estate that was like, hey, there's this really cheap spot by SMU. You guys should just rent the building and see if you can get some other people to do it. And we're like, sounds okay. So we went to our parents and our pro forma, our business plan was, hey, we really like doing this stuff. Maybe if you guys could give us some money, then we could buy some equipment and people could do it with us and they would pay us. And I don't know how they agreed to that, but they agreed to that. And so we started the gym they gave us each $8,000, which was so generous. We started the gym, bought some equipment, and that's how CrossFit Dallas Central started. For, let's be honest, pretty selfish reasons. I think we had kind of a glimpse of what the community could be like, but initially there was nothing in town. There was no place in town that even had bumper plates. And we were like, you can't do CrossFit without bumper plates. We've seen it in Santa Cruz. You got to have bumper plates. And so I think step one was like, let's just set up some scheme here where you pay us money and we buy equipment for ourselves so we can do this, you know? And this month we celebrate 11 years, and quite a bit has changed since April of 2008. Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry to drone on for so long, but it's hard to sum up your story in just a few minutes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, it's impossible. Every single time somebody asks me to do that on a podcast, it goes for the first 30 minutes. So I
Yeah.
totally understand. But dude, there's a few different points I wanna touch on. But I mean, what an amazing story. I mean, I do think that there's a lot of people in the fitness industry that, yes, maybe they were good at this stuff. That was me. Like I've never struggled with my weight or anything like that. But everybody else in my family, both immediate and extended, they did. And so for me, that was always something that, like, as soon as I started getting into it, it was like, man, like I want to help my family. And we all kind of know how that goes, right? So I kind of, from there, it was like, all right, well, maybe that's not the healthiest thing to do. Let me go and help other people, and kind of extend it from there. But I always love hearing the transformations of people that went through it, themselves, because they have empathy, towards the transformational process. And like, there are so many struggles that people go through that process. And so, anyways, just wanted to touch on that. But as far as your childhood and growing up, so basically while you were living in your house, you never struggled with being overweight. It was just like the asthma thing, and like you couldn't like run, right? So from a nutrition standpoint, I mean, what did that look like kind of growing up?
Man, my mom is way light years ahead of her time. So even when we were kids, like we would drive into Dallas and we would go to the one Whole Foods that was on Greenville Avenue, and she wouldn't let us eat regular M&Ms. They had to be carob M&Ms, which is like an imitation chocolate, So there's these things that she was really, really like dialed into. And so nutritionally, I think that there was some stuff from, vitamins that we took, or, wellness formula, and going to naturopaths, and, having like a osteopath as our primary physician versus like an MD. Like there were these things that she was really keyed into. But some of the stuff with asthma specifically, if that's what you're asking, was tied to allergies. So I found out in, so even as a kid, like celiac was very kind of under the radar. Like even the whole classification of autoimmune and stuff like that was not very prevalent. So gluten sensitivity, we knew that I had like a peanut allergy, but we didn't go as far as to test dairy. We didn't go as far as to test gluten. And so understanding that those things I had sensitivity to completely changed my life. Now I'm not full blown celiac and don't have like a autoimmune disease, but I'm very, very, very sensitive to both milk and gluten. And so I think those, it's a complex situation to try to go from being inflamed to uninflamed, but I think that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, I could probably paint a picture like, it was Oliver Twist and my life was shitty growing up. That's not the case, but I did have allergies that manifested itself in ways where asthma was like a big deal, especially seasonally as the seasons changed. And then I was definitely like a late bloomer. So if I had to, like look back and analyze the things that were struggles for me, it was those two, that I was really self-conscious and underdeveloped in high school. And then it was only exaggerated a little bit by the fact that there were some allergies, and there was some limitations that were kind of keeping me from spreading my wings, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's incredible though, that your mom was just even had the awareness around those things back then. I mean, these days you hear about all these, different tools, but I mean, me growing up, like that was not the case at all. So that's pretty crazy. At what point did you actually figure out that gluten and dairy were an issue, or milk specifically was an issue for you? Like when was that something later, like after college, or when did you actually figure that out?
The first restriction diet that I went on was Body for Life. Do you remember this?
Uh-uh.
This was 2002, I guess it was, and at the time it was like a I want to I forget the author's name, but he was just promoting basically like nutrient timing, and there was some restriction in the fact that like, hey, I don't even think he knew in this book what he was advocating, but it was really smart that just like, hey, let's have these more frequent meals. Let's try not to do as much refined carbohydrates as possible. But it wasn't until a few years later that I actually got allergy tested, and it came back that I was like really full blown, like sensitive to both those. And so I think that was in like 2004, 2005. So it was like right at the tail end of college for me. But it wasn't even like receiving those tests that I really appreciated, like what kind of impact that would have, like how life-changing that could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it kind of coincided with CrossFit, but there's a little bit of an overlap where it wasn't paleo for sure. And I think that CrossFit was really good about introducing like a true real foods paradigm shift, and just understanding the science and the chemistry behind that, like that it's not paleo, but it's just like, what does real food look like? And I think it was just an elimination diet, like taking that out for 3 weeks and then reintroducing it, and just having like full blown diarrhea and like almost like a, like asthma attacks. It's like, oh man, I think there's something here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we won't dive too far into that because I know we could definitely go down a rabbit hole with that whole conversation. But another thing kind of interests me, along that first intro was you and your brother. So, I mean, you mentioned your dad was a dentist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, your brother's at SMU, you're at A&M. I mean, you studied, you said, what was it again? Biochemistry?
Basically pre-med. They
Pre-med,
called
yeah.
it biomedical science, but it was basically a medical sciences undergrad degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what was your brother studying at SMU?
I can't keep up with it. It's like 12 things. I know it was psychology, and he said, like maybe anthropology. I think it was those two. It was primarily psychology, but he would say that he had like 4 minors, and he's, if you know Sam, like he's smart enough to back that up too. So it's like, hey, it must be true.
Yeah.
Latin, anthropology, archaeology. He basically, growing up, I think wanted to be Indiana Jones.
Well, so I guess my point to that is, I mean, obviously, y'all have some smarts in the family there. And it's so interesting to me, like, it's almost like you have this set path in terms of like school. Was there any of like, I mean, maybe from y'all's parents or maybe even with yourself in your own head around like, all right, here I am, I'm like going to school, like you thought you were going to go to medical school. And then all of a sudden you like open up this like little like gym. And I mean, it's crazy, right? Because it's like, you almost have like this set path and then you go completely a different direction.
Yeah, I think even when in the first years that we opened, we didn't think this was going to be the trajectory of where our careers would go. Sam had a completely different mindset of what he would do. I had the same thing. I had something, even though medical school was off the table. I was in graduate school to go get a doctorate. And that's where we were in the first couple of years. We didn't, to just kind of nail the point down, we didn't pay ourselves for the first couple of years because this wasn't a job. This was just like something we kind of did on the side. But I think that if Sam was sitting right here, he would say the same thing that I would, is that there's something hardwired into us where we really like helping people. Now, who knows what that's about? You know, maybe for me, it's because I just like the way I feel when so maybe it's selfish at the end of the day. You know, it's like I really like the way I feel when I know you feel good. But whatever it's for, I know that that's the thing that's probably like kept us doing this for as long as we have. That at some point I thought, okay, the things that I'm eventually trying to do with furthering my education at the university level, I can do here. It just looks at the surface level a lot different than what maybe I thought it would. And to that sense, I was asked this recently, when you look back at like probably your journey as well and how different it was, it's like you hang on, like you want to be aspirational, you want to have goals, but you have to be quick to pivot when that changes, and it's like, okay, medical school, yeah, it's not going to happen. Okay, grad school, all right, let's get the master's degree. Okay, doesn't make sense to do a doctorate. Okay, let's switch here, let's do this. And yeah, this is I guess the gym thing is perpetuated a lot longer than anything else in our lives at this point, but it still feels like something that we're hanging on to loosely and trying to evolve and change, even still, like doing it 11 years. Like what it looked like in the beginning is not what it looks like now. And hopefully in 10 years, it continues to look a lot different. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the original question or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, I mean, I'm sure you get this a lot. I've had so many people ask me the question, or maybe just had a conversation with somebody around like, how do you find like your passion? How do you find something you're passionate about? And I mean, that's been the last 10 years for me. It's like help people, like whether like, it doesn't matter what avenue you want to do, like find a way to like do something, dedicate your life to helping other people. And I think you truly will find like fulfillment in life. I mean, I can't imagine not doing something that was centered around helping other people. I mean, I feel like that's like my oxygen every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you strip down the meaning of life and you think about like what else is there, like what else would be the meaning of why we're on this planet? Like if there is some reason that we're here, well, it's probably to do something that's good for you and good for the people around you, and then good as an extension of the people that are around that. And yeah, I've really thought about that and thought like, man, of course that's what it is. Like, of course that's what it has to come down to. Because if you stay on the surface level of, oh man, I love teaching people how to do a thruster, man, that gets old super quick. But when you strip that away and it's like, I'm in the business of making an impact in somebody's life that would transform it for the better for the rest of their existence, bro, I can do that for the rest of my life. That fires me up every single time I say it, and it just so happens that it's really freaking cool what it is we get to do. Imagine if we were accountants. Like, I'm sure you would somehow come back to that impetus of like wanting to help people, but we have the great luxury of doing something that's also pretty rad at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a great reminder for everybody that is in the fitness field is like not ever taking that for granted. It's something that's really easy to do. And, not everybody in this world can do what we're doing. And I think it's, like you said, I mean, there's nothing I would rather be doing than helping people in this way. Like, you can help people in a million different ways, but this is definitely a really cool way to be able to do it. So I love that, man. What do you, one thing we were talking about a little bit before we hit record here was just the whole like connection piece and the community piece. And, like, especially here in this Dallas community, or really just any communities across the world, like how important is it to kind of, foster relationships and create, like, really make it a point in your life to create connection with other people? And obviously y'all have, an amazing community there with CFDC. So can you talk a little bit about kind of community connection relationships?
So you cut out a little bit just within the gym?
Or just in life. I think I think y'all have done a great job in terms of fostering that in y'all's community. So, maybe like, what's your thoughts around like human connection and the importance of building relationships with people?
Oh man. I think it is what we're really in the business of doing. For a long time, we thought that we were in the business of volume and scale. And, let's go back to like 2015, where we would get, CrossFit was hot, right? And we would get 30 people to show up. We're like, yeah, come on in. And I think the mindset there was like, man, let's just get as many people to the door as we possibly can. But you fast forward to today, and I think that when someone starts with a gym, it's this declaration that you and I are getting into a relationship. You thought that this was just a commodity, and you were somebody that was just going to step foot and consume this product that we're delivering. I'm here to tell you that I'm your coach for life. And we're not going to enter into this relationship, right, unless you appreciate everything that goes into that. And we do that with, like you said earlier, like a lot of empathy, with a lot of grace, because most people, it's like, hey, why are you here? Hey, just want to get tight, lose a little bit of weight, and it's like, yeah, but why, everybody says the same thing. But it's like, why are you really here? And so I think that takes some unpacking for them, just like we did. It's like, hey, we're in the business of transforming people. It takes unpacking for them as the customer, as the consumer, as the athlete, to understand that in order for them to change, it's not going to happen independently. It's not really going to happen by them just showing up to a class and doing air squats. That anything that you've done or I've done in my life has been completely dependent on other people. Now, maybe that was just inspiration. You saw somebody that was doing what you're currently doing. You're like, man, that's awesome. But you weren't inspired with that thought in a vacuum. When somebody loses 100 pounds, that doesn't just happen because they decided, yep, I'm going to do this. I live on an island. I know all the things to do. Like it happens in a community, and I think that community starts with us being the point of contact for them. And then as an extension of that, I use the analogy of church a lot, or even self-help if you're not a religious person. But Tony Robbins has a huge gathering where thousands of people go there, and it's intoxicating. It's amazing. But there's no assumption that real change is going to happen through there, right? You have to then take that volume and that scale and narrow it down to a smaller group, and then at some point, man, you may actually go into individual counseling with a therapist. And that's not taboo. Like, it's totally expected that you would do that. On the religious side, we go to big church, but everybody kind of understands that, like, outside of like amazing miracles, nothing really happens there. Like it's this existential process of you doing something that's action based on a regular basis. And that happens in a smaller community, or it happens one-on-one, And I think that if you were to look at the fitness industry or the health and wellness industry in the same lens, it has to happen in that same way as well. So for us today, like, it's a lot more work. It's super easy as a gym owner to just turn on great music, throw a badass workout on the board and be like, good luck, everybody. But it just doesn't ensure that transformation happens, right? So for us, I think we have to bust our butts, and we have to like step into this role where, and I think it's kind of evolving. Like, years past, I think we were just group fitness instructors. And at least for us, it's trying to be intentional about being basically like a health coach. It's no longer just a movement coach. It's no longer like, hey, this is an air squat, this is where you put your feet. But it's like, hey, I want to know everything about your nutrition, your sleep, your lifestyle, your stress, how you move, restrictions you have. It's like, I want all of it. And It's a lot more work, but I haven't done this so many different ways. I don't know a different way to do that. So to answer your question, fueled by lots of coffee, I think that it's just a community at large is an extension of those individual relationships. And it's a lot easier to navigate the group when you know everything about everybody that's in there. I mean, you've coached quite a bit, right? And you've had those classes in the past where it's like, I think I know that guy's name. And it's like, how good is that hour going to be for that person? Where it's like, I think I know his name. And I'm guilty of that too. Where it's like, I think I know who you are. Different than, I know that you're coming off a divorce. You've been inactive for 6 months. You have dependency on alcohol. You know, this, and that. It's like, how does that hour navigate when you have that type of information on that person? Not to use against them, but it's like, man, what kind of empathy, what kind of care, what kind of experience would you deliver when you had that kind of stuff? So I think that, oh, Justin, you know, like in this landscape that we find ourselves in, there's so many people that are doing a great job now with group fitness. You know, probably when you started, and definitely when I started, we had the market cornered on being able to get multiple people running through a workout at a time, especially with things like a barbell, things like kettlebells, things like dumbbells. But everybody's caught on to that, you know. I'm a secret shopper lately at like SoulCycle, Barry's Boot Camp, Orange Theory. Like I'll just go into all these places and act like I don't, you know anything, and I'm just a consumer. And they're all really good. None of them suck. I kind of had preconceived notions that I would go in there and they wouldn't know what they were talking about, or they would misuse, you know, some anatomy term. And that's not the case. Like I went to a Barry's boot camp class, and she was talking about hinging at the hip, and she was talking about posterior chain, and we did single leg deadlifts and Bulgarian split squats with the rear foot elevated, and her shit was tight. But I think that in that model, there's not a relationship. It is all about the experience within that hour. And it feels kind of like we were talking about, you know, with like childbirth, like it feels like this euphoric, like intoxicating experience. But what's the long-term sustainability of that? You know, like how long can you entertain somebody? How long can you give them this high rate of perceived exertion that's sustainable? And this is just a hypothesis by me, right? But I don't think that that's a really long-term game plan. I can't see, and this is the only criticism I have, I can't see somebody doing SoulCycle for 30 years. Now, their rub might be, hey, I can't see somebody doing CrossFit for 30 years. And my response is, you're exactly right. In the way that CrossFit may have been done in years past, with unbridled amounts of intensity and not really knowing the people, right? It becomes this commodity just like any other program out there. But I think if you use the tenets of CrossFit, which are, hey, we probably need to move your body through, you know, its full range of motion so you can keep using that into the latter years of your life. Makes sense that if we do that, we move joints together just the way that your body works outside of the gym. Let's make it challenging, but not too hard, because we want to progress you, but we want you to be able to do this long term. And I have ADD like you do, so let's make sure the routine is varied enough where you're not stagnant. You're also excited. Maybe there's a little unknown component, but not too much where you're nervous about it. That right there, you could do for the rest of your life. You know, could you do Fran the rest of your life the way that, you know, we probably did it the first time? No. But I think that's what probably is going to evolve. And you already seen it, right, with .com and kind of the health initiative. I think it's the best thing that has happened in a long, long time. Man, I really went off on there, man.
No, I love every bit of that, man. I completely agree. And I agree, you know, I do, you know, I guess contrary to some beliefs in terms of the competitive crowd, you know, I definitely think it's a good move. And, you know, it's, I think in the past, CrossFit has always been looked at as, you know, oh my God, like I'm not ready to do that yet. And now with this shift, it's definitely much more of, you know, what we've always known it was, but maybe they just didn't do a good job of marketing as, you know, like their marketing before was always the CrossFit Games. Now it's kind of making this shift. So I like it, man. And another point I really, you know, thought was interesting was the conversation around like the other 23 hours of the day, right? Because it's we have them for the 1 hour, and yes, there are so many ways to make that the best hour of their day. But, you know, like you said, it's so important for us to dive into the other 23 hours of the day, because, I mean, that's the majority, you know, and that's what you said was sleep, right? And like the personal development pieces and the community. And like, I mean, that's the other 23 hours of the day that I think is so important.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think somebody said most of everything I've said, I didn't really make up myself. I've just ripped it off of other people. And in addition to that, I heard somebody say one time that movement is really just smoke and mirrors compared to the other things that we can speak into in your life, you know. And like, we could give you the best workout of all time, and if you smoke a cigarette right afterwards, like it probably isn't going to take effect like it could, you know. And you could take out a cigarette and say binge eating, or poor sleep hygiene, or a stressful job, or whatever. Yeah, so just, I think sometimes people think that they have to be perfect to see results. And when they're not perfect, they think, well, I just won't mention it, because to mention it means that I'm broken, and this isn't supposed to be a place for broken people. And I think it's like on the contrary, you know, like we're a hospital, and there's not healthy people in a hospital. You know, there's healthy people in the afterlife, but myself included. It's like I got all kinds of hangups that I'm dealing with, and what a better place. And like that's probably going to take some time. Like I still feel like that's not even the culture in our place, where it's okay to talk about you know, an eating disorder, or it's okay to talk about like how you know, unhappy you are with your job in a gym, or all these things that basically just manifest it like you don't have it figured out, and that life is freaking hard. You know, I think in the gym there's still like this permeating culture that like everything is awesome, look at us, we're working out, it's so great and special. And it's like that's not reality. And I don't think that I think the gym should be an inoculating chamber for how difficult life is, and it should be the center to like address that stuff. I think church can be that. I think you know, a clinical practice in terms of like the psychology could be that. But here's what we got going that they don't, is that we can also touch like the physical stuff that happens in their life. Whereas, I mean, maybe there's some churches that are like, hey, let's get together and exercise on Saturday, but you know, that's not really a part of the protocol. That's weird for them to step into that realm. I think it's easy for us to like launch into those things that are definitely like unifying, that are definitely like integrated under this umbrella of like wellness. You know, I think fitness is kind of restricted. Fitness seems to the common man like it's just movement, and maybe to the more educated man like it's movement and nutrition. But when you talk wellness, when you talk health, like that turns into something much more broad that I think you could have a bigger impact on.
Yeah, 100%, man. I completely agree. And going back to, you know, the previous point, I don't think that we can get to those places with people in our community if we're standing from afar and saying, I think I know his name. You know, if we're mentioning a name 1, 2, 3 times in a class, when we're actually getting to know these people, you know, and it's a process, it's a journey. But as, you know, you start to build this rapport and build these relationships with people, that's when those conversations can actually manifest. So I love that, man. Dude, I want to respect your time. I know we're coming up here on the hour, but dude, it was a great conversation. I feel like I've always felt like I could just literally talk to you like all day long. Like you're just such a a deep mind, and I love it, man. So, dude, where can everybody find y'all at, you on social media, and then also obviously CFDC if you're ever in Dallas and want to drop in?
You can go to MySpace. No, I mean, you can just Google CrossFit Dallas and it'll pop up. The website's on there. All the stuff is yeah. If you do a Google search for CFDC or CrossFit Dallas Central, it'll come up there. And man, we love people. We love what you're doing. Thank you for having me. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me run my mouth for a little bit.
Absolutely, man. I love it. Dude, Spence, always a pleasure, my man. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much.